Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. MC-Mura here, and in today's video we're gonna talk about the neutral game of King of Fighters. Now when people start with KOF, they pretty much focus on rushing down the opponent, like jumping, hopping and getting down the big combos, which obviously are all important, but the neutral game and knowing how to defend yourself, how to pretty much stand your ground is gonna go a long way in making you a good player. But there are a couple of hurdles that you will have to overcome first, starting with a very basic one, and that is how do you deal with fireball zoning, because it can be somewhat oppressive in this game if you're not dealing with it correctly. Like I said, if you're trying to approach the opponent from this angle, hop, or even from this range and go for a hyper hop, chances are you will eat a fireball in your face for your trouble, and you will find characters like Robert, King, Mai, etc. extremely frustrating to play against. So what do you want to do? Well, it's easy. You want to understand where you can space yourself so that you are posing a threat to the person throwing the fireball, right? So from this range we said that hops and hyper hops are bad, but you know what is good? Regular jumps, which I feel like people sometimes forget is actually a part of the game. And what is more likely to happen is you will be standing from this distance, and then if you expect a fireball you can hyper hop, and would you look at that, we actually got a punish, right? So you want to space yourself so that you are able to threaten with a jump, and if the opponent moves backward you move forward. If they move forward and try to poke, maybe try to outpoke them, jump, anti-air and all of that. But getting into the range where a jumping is actually threatening is the first part of solving the fireball puzzle. Now, one of the most important other aspects of the neutral is knowing how to stand your ground, and this will come in terms of pokes or moves that you can use to pretty much occupy space and deny the opponent the ability to press forward. Let's say we're fighting a character like Robert again, and they are running at you and then using their crouching B. This is very common. So what can you do in this instant? Well, for a character like Shurmi, her crouching B is actually really good at stopping that, right? If the opponent is running, bam, you check them with the crouching B, and this will stop their approach. Now, thankfully for a character like her, this crouching B is actually cancelable onto the EX launcher kick thing, so you can get some conversions here. For others, they have standing Bs, which is also good for that. A lot of characters, almost everyone will have a poke or at least a move, maybe even her standing jab or standing A is actually not bad at stopping the approach. This is very quick and have very little recovery. I would say only the standing B have sizable recovery, but everything else have quick recovery. Pretty much this is a game where you wanna stay active. If the opponent is trying to approach you, well, what you wanna do is throw out a hitbox so that they will run into it, and that would allow you to convert. Now, this doesn't only have to do with grounded approach, because this applies to the air as well. This next point will follow on the previous one and also cover a new area, and that is how to stop the opponent from approaching you from the air, right? Now obviously this will include grounded anti-airs like your obviously it is character dependent, but for someone like Shurmi, her far standing D and the crouching C, both of these are good anti-airs, and obviously she has the TP and everything, so all of that is good. But one tool that is not likely to be used by a lot of the new players is using neutral jumps to stop the opponent from approaching, either neutral jumps or back jumps, and you want to look at horizontal hitting attacks. So moves like Shurmi's jumping C+D, this is somewhat slow but is pretty active and very horizontal. Sometimes when you are trying to again play the ultra rush down jump in game, you will find yourself losing a lot to the opponent jumping attacks, right? Especially for a character like Robert and his jumping C+D, it might seem impossible to beat, right? But what you want to do is neutral jump hop and neutral jump neutral hop and neutral jump with a horizontal attack. This can be a wall. For a character like Shurmi, her neutral jump D, this is kind of like a wall. It's very horizontal, and unless the opponent have to run and then DP you, which even if they did, it's not really that big of a risk. it's very hard to approach you with this, right? So you can be very active between doing this, and you will just be a wall that the opponent will not be able to stop. Yes, it does have a landing frame of recovery, so you might get punished, but honestly I do think the risk and reward is good enough that you will want to do this. And when the opponent will find it difficult to approach you from the air and from the ground, well, you know what, this will actually now give you the chance for you to approach them. And this next one is also pretty important because it's a behavior that you will run into online all the time, and that is players mashing crouching B. It actually can be pretty hard to beat this because obviously they are very fast, the recovery is very low, they're not really wave punishable, and if you happen to run into them, a lot of characters can convert from these into a lot of damage. So how can you deal with them? The first part is actually easy, and that is outspace them with a heavy normal, right? So for a character like Shermie, the standing heavy punch is actually pretty nice. You can use this to beat the crouching B spam, but the easiest answer and the universal answer is gonna be short hopping over them, right? You have to make sure that your hop is spaced well enough so you can actually hit the opponent, right? It is somewhat challenging to deal with it, and it is annoying and obnoxious. Wish they would have a little bit more recovery, but it is something that you will need to know how to deal with. And finally, and to bring everything together, in this game you don't want to play super reactive, right? This is not a game where you kind of have to wait and see what the opponent is doing all the time. You kind of want to mixture all of what I said together, right? Don't stay still and wait around too much. If you happen to like hop, then maybe a lot of people, for example, from this range, they will hop and see their jumping attack miss, and then they will start to block, but you don't really want to do that. You always want to either poke, deny the opponent's ability to jump. Think of sequences, think of what you can do is like, alright, so I'm gonna do action 1 and then action 2 and then action 3. And this is probably the most challenging part of it, right? Is you kind of have to commit in a way that might make some players kind of uncomfortable at first, because decision making in this game happens really quickly. So you want to set a sequence for yourself. I will do 1 and then 2 and then 3, and then see what my opponent's reaction to that is, and based on that data you can then decide what you want to do next. If you have enjoyed this video, please leave a like or a comment, it helps the channel so much. I will be leaving a link to the Patreon page, Discord, Twitter and Twitch pages in the description. Thank you very much for watching and stay safe.